from Alchemy Support Services. If you're new to this channel, I'm an NDIS provider located here in Port Macquarie. I got a question about how much it costs to be NDIS audited, like the auditing process. And I thought I would explain it in this video so everyone else can have a look back on this and gain some knowledge. One simple answer for this, it's very complex as every different provider will be costed differently. So before you are audited per se, you have to go on the NDIS Commission website and there's a self-assessment and scope of audit. And this is a test, it's one thing, and it's a test that tells you the scope of the audit. So when you do this test, it'll ask you questions like how many employees you'll have, or how many you have right now if you've already got a business and you're thinking about being NDIS audited. It'll ask you questions like what will your service provide. So if that's behavioural support, if that's a psychologist, if that's one-on-one support, if that's in a house, if you've bought a house and you're wanting to get NDIS participants in there, it'll ask you a lot of questions in there. And before I did this assessment, I had already talked to an NDIS auditor. So he told me that there are some things in there that when you get audited, the NDIS auditor will go in there and fill out those questions. So there are going to be some questions that you can't fill out just yet, and you just write TBA, and then once you get audited, that auditor will go onto your profile and fill out those questions. So just fill out what you can, and just because if you don't write anything in those comments, they'll say that you didn't fill it out properly. So that's one of my tips when filling out those assessments. And to kind of explain the scope of audit, so it kind of grades you in how high risk or low risk. So the higher the risk, the more costly the audit will be, because that will take more time. They'll have to ask you more questions, you'll have to have more documentation, and the interview would probably go longer. They may even have to visit the premise if you have a premise. Like an example of a high risk service would be if you were to buy a house and you had NDIS participants living in that house and it's 24-hour care. You would have to have fire safety, all this safety around the house, the assessments, whether that's accessible, whether that's safe, how the whole house is set up. The auditor will have to inspect the whole house and go through all of those processes and procedures if something were to happen. And a low risk example would be maybe a psychologist that does only telehealth. So they only do sessions via Zoom or a platform like that. So that would be really low risk, and that would be it wouldn't be costly at all. I don't know anyone who's done that audit, but yeah, so I can't give you a price range. But once you have your scope of audit, that's when you can go around to auditors that are registered to do NDIS and ask for a quote. So when they quote, they go off the scope of audit. So once you've got that, that's when you can ring around. I would do maybe 3 to 5 quotes because the price difference can sometimes vary, and also do research of who your auditor will be, because yeah, the quality that you can get from the auditor, or if they're really picky or if they're unjust, I would just do a bit of research about that, because you can get some that maybe don't align with you, to put it the nice way. Yeah, so do research and pick the right auditing company that feels right for you. What else that needs to be considered when going through the auditing process is the documentation. For me, that was the hardest bit because I was a support worker. I didn't work in the office or in admin. I just had no idea. I knew what a service agreement was and consent forms and stuff like that, but there's just so much more to the documentation, policies and procedures that it was way over my head. So I hired a consultant, and that made my life a lot easier. I had a great consultant. I can put her details in the box, but she essentially coached me to be confident enough to go through the auditing process because I had no idea what that process looked like. I just really had no idea. I didn't even know I knew what a procedure was, but I didn't know the ins and outs to make my own procedures and policies. It was just, I really recommend, if you've got no idea like I did, to definitely hire a consultant that has all these templates and procedures and policies, and then they pick the ones that's tailored to your to what you want to provide. So because I wanted to do a centre where participants come in and do maybe 1-to-1, 3-to-1, all of that stuff, so all of my policies and procedures and templates was personalised to that. So if you had assisted living, there would be more policies and procedures that you would need to go through, but it would be tailored to you and what you want to provide, such as a psychologist. It would be tailored to that. So essentially what it is, it goes through all of like your compliances. So you have to have a participant handbook that you give your participants every time they sign up. What you do if a support worker doesn't follow protocol, what's your procedure through that? And that's kind of what the auditing process is. They go through all your templates and make sure that you comply with everything that needs to be in those templates. And to be perfectly honest, it's just so complex that it's really an investment hiring someone to help you through that and really understand what each sheet of paper actually means and why you have to have it and why someone has to fill it out. Because if you get audited again a year later and they're like, why didn't you fill out this form? You can get into some trouble that way. So all up, my auditing process cost me $8,200, and I would say mine's a moderate risk. It would not be high risk and it wouldn't be low risk, but I would say it's a moderate risk. So I hope this video gives you an idea of how to go about it. Definitely the first step is do your scope of audit assessment, which is on the NDIS Commission website. Get some quotes, and then if you need to get your documentation and everything like that, definitely get some quotes from NDIS consultants. Some consultants will just give you the paperwork and then you're there to fend for yourself. So if you don't know much like I did at the start, I would definitely go down the path of having an NDIS consultant that will go through all your paperwork. It was actually $4,000 for the NDIS consultant, and then I found another company that was an NDIS consultant, which all the documentation would have been $4,000, but they didn't teach me anything, they just gave me the documentation. So it was kind of a no-brainer going that way. Yeah, I hope this video helps, and I suggest that everyone follows me either on Facebook or Instagram, because I do put up a lot of posts on there really trying to educate providers or even participants about what you can how you can improve, how you can stay relevant with the NDIS changes, and I really just try and advocate as well. So yeah, follow me on there, follow me on here, and yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.